A broad path of white stone led to the great pyramid's entrance, which had been built to resemble the facade of Cetra's court. At the top of the steps waited a score of mortuary priests, like silent ghosts, lingering in the shadows of the great statues of Naru and Geheb, a dozen tall urns of wine resting on the stones before them. A dozen armed priests from the temple of Osirian stood vigil outside the tomb, their faces hidden behind gold owl masks. As the procession came to a stop at the foot of the steps, the leader of the Horrocks stepped forwards and called out in a loud voice, "Who comes here?" Nagash raised the staff of Aegis and answered, "The king has come. His time on earth has passed, and his spirit goes forth into the dusk. This is the house where he will take his rest." The Horrocks bowed deeply and stepped aside. "Let the king come in," their leader intoned. "A place has been made for him." Silently, the palanquin bearers made their way past the guardians and up the steps into the tomb, accompanied by the acolytes who would assist the priests in completing the internment. Nagash climbed the steps to the tomb and took his place beside the wine-bearers. The Grand Hierophant turned to the waiting throng and spread his arms. "The king has gone into his house," he intoned. "Where are the faithful who will honor and serve him for all the ages to come?" Next came the Ushabti. Each one took the poisoned cup, almost gratefully, glad to escape the accusing eyes of the living and resume their watch upon the king. Even before the last of the devoted was gone, a stir went up among the slaves as they sensed that their time was drawing near. More than one had to be dragged up the stone steps and forced to drink the sacred wine, much to the consternation of the royal household. When the last of the slaves had been taken into the crypt, it was time for the sacrifices. Once more, Nagash spread his arms before the diminished crowd and proclaimed, "Let us make offerings to Osirian, he who leads the souls through the darkness, so that Ketep may enjoy a peaceful journey into the afterlife." Nagash turned to Khefru. "Bring forth the barbarians," he commanded. Khefru nodded and gestured to 3 of the waiting priests. They quickly descended the steps and took hold of the insensate Druchii. The barbarians hissed and spat like angry cats as they were dragged before the Grand Hierophant. Khefru stepped forward with the cup. At once, the 2 females began to curse Nagash in their cruel, sibilant tongue. The male bared his teeth in a silent snarl. "Kill us and be done with it," he said. "But know this, he who slays us will be cursed now and forevermore. His lands will turn to ash, and his flesh will shrivel from his bones." At this, Khefru hesitated, until Nagash spurred him into motion with a heated glare. The Druchii made no move to resist, and when the cup was placed to their lips, they drank their measure, staring Nagash in the eye all the while. One by one, they sank to the stone and grew still. Reed torches dipped in pitch hissed and spat from the sconces along the walls of the stone chamber. It was a large room, 40 paces to a side, but unfinished, the walls still undressed sandstone, and the chamber completely bare except for the 3 bodies stretched out on the floor. The stone door to the chamber grated open. Khefru stepped inside, holding his torch high. Nagash followed swiftly behind him. The Grand Hierophant walked quickly to the 3 lifeless Druchii and studied them for a long moment. "There were no problems?" he asked Khefru. "None, master," the priest replied with a smirk. "I just waited until everyone had left the city and dragged them inside." Nagash nodded thoughtfully. He knelt first beside the Druchii male and pulled a tiny vial from his belt. He pulled open the barbarian's mouth and poured 2 drops of a greenish liquid on his tongue. Then he moved to the first of the 2 females. He had just finished with the second when the male drew in a great, whooping breath and sat bolt upright. The barbarian spat a stream of curses in his native tongue, and his eyes were wild as he looked around the room. "Where am I?" the barbarian asked.
"Deep beneath the earth," Nagash replied. "You are in a vault of the lowest recesses of the Great Pyramid."
The barbarian frowned. "The wine," he began.
"You drank from a different urn than all the rest. Khemri made sure you drank a potion that created the illusion of death, rather than inflict it outright."
"For what purpose?" the Druchii asked warily. Nagash smiled and said,
"For what other purpose? You have something I want. I'm prepared to make a trade in order to get it."
"What is it I could possibly offer you?"
"The priest king of Tsandri slew my father with sorcery. Dark, fearsome magic that our priests had no means to prevent."
He glanced knowingly at the barbarian.
"You performed that spell for him, did you not?"
"Perhaps," the Druchii said, smiling coldly.
Nagash glared at the barbarian and said, "Don't dissemble. The facts are obvious. Khemri doesn't possess the skills to master such magic, and the effects of the spell were unlike anything I've ever seen. He persuaded you to use your sorcery to aid him in battle, and then, when you realized the true extent of your power, he betrayed you."
"Go on," the Druchii said, his smile fading.
"Khemri didn't want your blood on his hands. I expect you threatened to curse him too at some point in your captivity. So he sent you to Khemri instead. That way, we would kill you and suffer the consequences instead."
"Clever, clever little human," the Druchii hissed. "And all of the other theater was simply to satisfy your curiosity?"
"Of course not," Nagash snapped. "I want the secrets of your sorcery. Show me how to wield the power you command, and in return, I will set you free."
The Druchii laughed.
"How delightful,"
he said with a sneer. "Khemri said almost exactly the same thing. Why should I trust you?"
"Why isn't that obvious?"
Nagash asked, his smile widening.
"Because you're 40 feet below the earth, in a tomb designed to kill those who wander its halls."
The Grand Hierophant folded his arms.
"I've already buried you alive, Druchii. The only choice you've got left is to give me what I want."